Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode we'll make sourdough fougasse. It's a French bread, similar in preparation to a focaccia. The end result is a bit more crusty, but still nice and soft on the inside. I've made this particular one with olives, but you could fill it with roasted vegetables, maybe some mushrooms, or you could also leave it plain. But that is up to you. You could customize it the way you like it. But as always, you'll find a full recipe with all the details down in the description box with metric and imperial units, so no matter where you're from, you'll be able to follow it. Now let's see what equipment we need. We need a tray with some non-stick paper, a bowl, scales, dough scraper and a temperature probe. Now onto the ingredients. We need some strong white bread flour, some wholemeal flour, water, salt, a bit of olive oil and some olives of your choice and a nice and active sourdough starter. And for tips on making your starter and keeping it nice and active, click the link in the top right corner. Now the first thing we need to do, as with any sourdough bread, we need to build the leaven. And to do it, we need to mix a portion of the total water with a little bit of sourdough starter and a portion of the total flour. And after it's been left to ferment for a while, the resulting mix will be the leavening agent for our dough. A happy starter will equal an active leaven. And if you feed your starter every day, then that's no problem. But if you keep yours in the fridge, then I would always suggest feeding it a couple times before you build your leaven. And make sure they use filtered water. Regular tap water can really hinder sourdough progress. Or maybe you already know all this. Now, once you mix your leaven, cover it up and leave it to ferment. It should take around 10 to 12 hours. But of course it all depends on the temperature of your kitchen. Just make sure that your leaven's almost tripled. Because we're making this dough by hand, use cold water, 6.5 degrees centigrade. Now check out the leaven. It's nicely puffed up. It's almost filled the whole jar. It's full of bubbles and ready to go. Now grab your bowl and add the water. And if you want to learn more about temperature control, click the link in the top right corner. Now after the water, add your leaven. And this should be nice and strong. If you can pour it out the jar, then it's over fermented. You want it to be bubbly, puffed up, but still have some body to it. Now add your oil, and then in with the salt and wholemeal flour. Now you want to give it a quick mix. Doing this will distribute the ingredients evenly throughout the liquid and also dissolve any large salt crystals. You should always mix this before you add the final ingredient, the bulk of the flour. And once you've added your flour, grab your scraper and mix it to a dough. You want to mix this in the bowl until it's one cohesive piece to avoid making a mess on your table. Although the next part will be really messy anyway, but you know what I mean. This dough is super sticky, so I would suggest wetting your hands before starting to knead it. We're going to use the stretch and fold method. What you want to do is pick the dough up by one side, stretch it against the table towards yourself and fold it over forwards. Once you've done this a few times, it'll become second nature. Now like I said, this will be super sticky and messy. And you can grab your scraper once in a while and scrape it all together. And if it's really sticky into your hands, then wet them with some water, but don't use too much water. This will take around 8 to 9 minutes, or 500 turns if you want to count them. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's quite quick really. And after kneading, the dough will still be sticky, that's just how it is. Just collect it into a bowl, now wash your dirty hands, and make sure to wet them before you handle your dough, this is always best. Water really prevents it from sticking. But as you can see, it's nice and bouncy, it's nice and stretchy, so it's ready to go. We can put it in our bowl and start fermenting. But as always, take the temperature. We're aiming for about 25 degrees Celsius, or 77 Fahrenheit. If your dough is cooler, it will take longer to ferment. If it's warmer, it will take less time. If you have your fillings in the fridge, then I would suggest taking them out at this point to get them up to room temperature. Now cover your dough up and leave it for 45 minutes. We'll perform a series of folds on this dough. Folding will help us with degassing the dough, creating extra layers in the dough structure and also equalizing the temperature. But even more importantly in this case, it will help us incorporate the olives in the dough, or whichever ingredients you may choose to add to it. So to do the first fold, just dump your olives on the dough and then fold the dough over them. Go around in a circle, just do maybe 4 folds, then flip the dough upside down so the seam is on the bottom, then cover it up again and leave it to ferment for 45 more minutes. Altogether we will fold this dough 4 times. I'll use a slightly different method for all the following folds. This is called a coil fold. What you want to do is wet your hands, Pick the dough up by the middle and roll it underneath itself, then turn the bowl and repeat on all sides. You want to roll it or coil it until it's nice and tight. This is a great method for folding a really wet dough. Even though this dough is not that wet, it still works for this. So we finished our fold, cover it up and leave it to ferment for 45 more minutes. Now it's fold number 3. I'm going to speed this part up, you get the idea by now. Fold number 3 done, cover it up, leave it for 45 more minutes. I may add, if your dough is fermenting rapidly and really puffing up, you might want to do only 3 folds. My kitchen's quite cold today, so this is taking a while. And after fold number 4, I want to cover it up and leave it for 3 hours. And again, it may take you less, it may take you more time. You want it to almost double in size from what you started with. Now let's get this out the bowl. Before we do, grab some oil and pour it around your dough. Then take your dough scraper and release it from the bowl. And once it's released, roll it around in the oil. You want to cover the whole surface. And this is a great method for doing it, because you want to cover the whole of your dough, but you don't want to make a mess on your table or on your tray. And you can do the same for focaccia. Now grab your dough and place it out on your tray. I would suggest using some non-stick paper to avoid disappointment. Now at this stage you can start controlling the crustiness of your bread. If you want it more crispy and crusty, you can stretch it out more so it's thinner. But if you want it to be more soft and fluffy, then don't stretch it out too much. Now the final fermentation may take 1 to 2 hours, depending on how quick your bread is rising. During this time you want to preheat your oven to 230 degrees Celsius, fan off. Once your fougasse is puffed up, when you poke with your finger, leaves a nice indentation, it's ready to go. And the last thing we need to do is cut some holes in it. It's supposed to resemble a leaf, traditionally, but you can go as crazy as you want with the design. The dough scraper is a really good tool for this. Just grab it and press straight down to the tray. And once you finish cutting, stretch it out. Now get your fougasse in the oven. It should take around 25 to 30 minutes. Check the bottom of the dough towards the end of baking. If it's a bit pale, then flip it upside down to crisp up the bottom for the final 5 minutes of baking. And I actually had to do that. And there's nothing wrong with it. The main thing is to bake it properly. And as you can see, it's looking good. One last thing I like to do is grab some olive oil and brush it over the surface, just to make it nice and shiny. But that's up to you if you want to do that. Regardless, that's how you make sourdough fougasse. If you have any questions or suggestions, drop them down in comments. Subscribe for more videos. My channel's full of recipes and bread baking principles. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.